Caleb Williams. Wax poetic about Caleb and throw some negatives in there too, so people don't think we're too biased.
I'll throw some negatives in there because there's definitely some negatives. But yeah, I mean, to me, Caleb Williams is head and shoulders the best quarterback in this draft class. He would be, you saying Drake May would have been the QB1 in the last 2 years, and I think you're probably right. I think Caleb Williams would have been QB1 for the past, I don't know, 5-6 years. I don't know what the actual number is, but at least that. So, watching his tape, I know, like I mentioned this earlier, when you don't want to evaluate that high end plays, those off script plays as much. You want to see the stuff from the pocket as well. Caleb Williams does both those things. You see his highlights on Twitter all the time where it's him making an incredible play, scrambling out of pressure and making an incredible throw downfield. Those pop up all the time on his tape. But I think what gets overlooked is all the times that he plays within structure and plays, within the rhythm of the offense and all that stuff. But man, he just has such a quick release. I mentioned, Drake May, I thought had an elongated release. JJ McCarthy a little bit as well. But Caleb Williams is so quick and tight. He gets his whole lower body into it, and he just creates great torque. He's not the biggest guy, but he probably has one of the stronger arms that we're talking about today. So the arm talent, I wrote this in my scouting report of him. I don't know if he's a generational quarterback prospect. That word gets thrown around a lot. I think his arm talent is absolutely generational, just between his quick release, his arm strength, and his ball placement. There's just so much good things in there. All three of those things are the best in this class, best in the last couple of classes. So there's just so much good in terms of the arm talent that you can kind of overlook some of the other things. In terms of the negatives, he does play hero ball a little bit too much. Again, I think part of that was the offense, or the team he played on. USC did not have a good offensive line. They had some weapons, but not a lot of great weapons. So, and they're also, just more importantly, probably, is their defense was giving up 40 points a game. So if Caleb didn't play hero ball, the USC wasn't winning the game. But going back to what I was talking about with Drake May, with drifting in the pocket, even if you needed to do that in college, that's a really good way to just build up bad muscle memory and to fall into bad habits. So that's something he definitely has to clean up. I did think there were times when he took unnecessary sacks too. There were times when he's passing up easy throws to try and make a big play and instead takes a sack. And as I'm starting to learn when, talking about quarterbacks, sack avoidance is such an important thing in the NFL. All the great quarterbacks in the NFL are really low in terms of, or high, whatever you look at it, in terms of avoiding sacks. And right now, Caleb Williams is not great at that. So that's something he's going to have to get better at. But when you look at the whole picture, I think he does everything really well. Another thing I want to talk about is the Notre Dame game. That always gets brought up when talking about Caleb Williams. If you're on Twitter and you say something positive about Caleb Williams, you'll get 50 replies saying, "What about the Notre Dame game?" And I think the Notre Dame game is a great way to evaluate him because he had a bad first half. There's no way around it. He threw 3 picks in the first half. It wasn't a good half. But what I liked about that game is that he came out of halftime and probably had one of his best second halves of the year. Like, he played in structure. He was making plays on time. He was making great throws. He was doing everything that was asked of him in the second half of that game. And he could have easily gone into halftime we lost. Like, I'm going to go out there and just try and, sling it and see what happens. But he didn't. He made an adjustment. We talk about coaching halftime adjustments, but quarterback halftime adjustments. He's like, I'm not putting my team in position to win. I'm going to rein it back a little bit and just play within the rhythm of offense. And he did that, and he had a really good game. They didn't end up winning the game, but I thought he did as best he could. And then he also came out the next week. Again, he could have kind of gone back into bad habits after a bad game, but he came out the next week and had a good game as well. So there's a lot of nuance to it, but I think there's the good absolutely outweighs the bad with Caleb Williams.
Man, you look at this and you just say, USC was third in the country in scoring last year. The next highest drafted guy in that roster is going to be the running back with the 4th round pick, maybe? Maybe Rice, the receiver.
Maybe Rice, one of those two, yeah.
3rd round, maybe. I mean, the dude makes magic happen. And he has, I don't know what you want to call it, it factor, magic, something special. There's something different about the way this dude plays football. When it feels different, it needs to be assessed differently. And I thoroughly believe that with Caleb Williams. Like, the stats are there, the gaudy stuff is there, but also you see people looking at, like, his time to throw is pretty ludicrous, right?
Right.
But that's where you need to, when it feels different, you need to keep digging and look at it a little bit differently. And on Twitter, Kyle Morris, his account, Start Kyle Orton, he dug
Mhm.
deep into that time to throw.
Yeah.
I don't think the guy has slept. I think it's all he thinks about. But
Yeah.
he found really encouraging stuff. I would encourage anyone who hasn't read it to go over to the Bears blog and read his write up on Caleb Williams' time to throw, because basically what he found was that when Caleb Williams was not under pressure quickly, his time to throw is right there with anybody else's when they were not pressured quickly, which means that when his O line was not breaking down instantly, he was playing within the structure right there with anybody from the basis of getting the football out on time. But it
Right.
was when that pressure hit quickly, his time to throw went up to something ludicrous like 8 seconds, which means
Yeah.
he was buying 8 seconds of time before he threw the football and
Yeah.
wasn't taking those sacks. Like, I mean, he took some sacks in there, but
Sure.
when that pressure got on him quickly, he bought more time than any other human on earth probably could.
Yeah.
That's some
Yeah.
nutty stuff right there that you just don't see every year with a prospect.
And I'm glad you brought up the start Kyle's article, because that was something I was going to mention as well, because that did a really good job. So I just want to give that one another shout out. Make sure to read that. And yeah, just the way he can avoid pressure is just so top tier. And it's not only the avoiding pressure, but it's avoiding pressure and keeping his eyes downfield. And he just kind of has like a sixth sense about where the rushers are coming from. But yeah, just keeping his eyes downfield when that happens and still making a play. Like he's athletic and can scramble, but that's not his first instinct, is to, oh, there's pressure, I'm going to scramble. There's pressure, I'm going to step up in the pocket, or I'm going to step to the right and give my guy an extra second to get open. And if they do, he's going to hit him. And if not, then he's going to buy another second and then take off kind of as a last resort. So just the way he just manipulates the pocket is something that I have not seen from a prospect in a long time.
His instinct to flatten the curve for an edge rusher to crush him by stepping up is just different. Like the way that when he has edge rushers come and run in the circle around the tackle, and he knows that he's not going to have the time, he steps backwards to make it easier for the edge rusher, just to give them, like, it's like, holding out the cheese to the rat, like, here, come get it, and then steps up and manages to keep his eyes downfield in a lot of those situations, which is that's not something that you see from many NFL quarterbacks, let alone college quarterbacks. It is a different trait. It is something that Aaron Rodgers has given me nightmares about. That's something that I want on my football team. That's something I want in my quarterback. And if he's a little bit of a diva, so is Aaron Rodgers, so is Tom Brady, so is Peyton Manning. I'm cool with it.
Pat Mahomes, they're all have a little bit of diva in them. Yeah, and I think Aaron Rodgers, that's still the comp that I always go back to, and it stems from that just the pocket maneuvering and keeping his eyes downfield. That's a big part of it, just avoiding sacks and everything like that. And I think, like, other people compare him to Kyler Murray, which I think is also a good comparison. And hey, if you're telling me we're getting 6'1" Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray is 5'10", like if you tell me we're getting 6'1" Kyler Murray, okay, great, I'll take that all day. That's a huge win, even if if you're talking about that as like his floor, like that's incredible. I love that. Like, give me that. That's the best quarterback in Bears history by a wide margin. So if that's kind of like what you're looking at as the floor, and then you have the chance to get him a Mahomes, or
rookie, didn't he?
It was close at least. And if you're telling me the ceiling is a Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, then hell yeah, let's go for it. Let's take a swing. But I do think I like kind of speaking about his floor.
Correction, Kyler Murray has not hit 4,000 yards as a passer. He was close as a rookie at 3,700, but he still has always come up a little short.
Yeah, a little short. I see what you did there. But speaking about it, kind of his floor, because I think it gets thrown out there like, I actually think he has a relatively high floor as a quarterback prospect, because I think he does so many things well, and with his arm talent, like even if he doesn't reach his potential, I think his floor is that of an average starter. And if you can, obviously that would be bad, not great if you get an average starter using the first overall pick, but you get an average starter in a rookie contract, and you can make that work if you need to. But again, that we're talking about like the worst case scenario. I think with everything he has to offer, even if he doesn't clean up some of his, hero ball antics and, maybe takes a few more sacks than you want him to, you still can win with that profile in the long run.